3 years ago, you used to park your scratched-up sedan as far from the office entrance as possible. You thought success meant upgrading everything. But you hadn't realized that real wealth begins exactly when you stop trying to look rich. Even you didn't notice the shift at first. When exactly does your mind stop thinking like a consumer and start building quietly? There are 9 silent habits that build stealth wealth, and habit number 7 is the one that breaks most people. It begins with habit number 1. Not a massive salary bump, not a lottery win, but the simple act of refusing lifestyle inflation. Your coworker Marcus just pulled up next to you. He's driving a brand new luxury SUV, financed at a premium rate. He deliberately spins his shiny car keys on his finger during the morning meeting, making sure everyone notices his upgrade. Everyone complimented him. You just smiled. The old you would have felt a sting of embarrassment. You would have calculated how many months until you could afford one too. While Marcus fell right into the lifestyle inflation trap, trading his future for present applause, you chose a completely different path. You think earning more means spending more to prove your worth. But the truth is, every dollar you don't spend buys your freedom. You don't need the shiny keys anymore. Walking back to your old, reliable car at 5 p.m. feels incredibly light and peaceful. No car payments weighing you down. No pressure to maintain a false image. Just quiet, compounding security that nobody else can see. But refusing to upgrade is only the first shield. Habit number 2 is where you start making that money work in complete silence. You see, the people who actually build wealth don't rely on willpower to save. They automate the process so they never even see it. You used to try saving whatever cash was left over at the exact end of the month. You relied on sheer willpower. But human willpower is a terrible financial strategy. There was always a random dinner, a sale, or an emergency. Now the money leaves your checking account the exact same day your paycheck arrives. You pay your future self first. At first, it feels frustratingly slow. It is just a tiny, invisible seed planted in a separate account you never touch. But that invisible seed starts to grow. Compound interest begins its quiet work in the background, completely removed from your daily emotions. Not because you are greedy, not because you want to trick them, but because you are protecting your own peace. They would expect you to pick up the tab. They would judge your frugal choices. So you remain entirely silent. This is the profound realization. Wealth is not built on painful daily sacrifices. It is built on a single, automated decision. Remember that shift we talked about? It happens right here. You stop relying on motivation and you start relying on systems. And once you secure your cash flow, you unlock habit number 3. The habit where you start using money to buy back time. You think money is just currency to buy things. But true wealth is using your money to buy back your own time. A few years ago, you used to say yes to every single overtime shift just to afford things you never had time to use. You sat in endless, meaningless meetings, silently calculating exactly how many hours of your life paid for a designer jacket. Every purchase has an invisible price. The opportunity cost isn't just the dollars, it's the hours of freedom you trade away. The pressure to upgrade is always there, whispering that you deserve a lavish reward for all that exhausting hard work. But now, you look at a $500 purchase and you don't see a luxury item. You see an entire week of freedom. Marcus walks in completely exhausted. He just had to pick up another weekend shift because his car insurance premium was surprisingly high. He complains loudly about having absolutely zero free time. He traded all his peaceful weekends for a shiny steering wheel. You listen quietly. You realize he is entirely trapped in a cycle where his expensive possessions actually own him completely. You chose completely differently. You still drive that old scratched car, but your Saturday mornings belong entirely to you. Money is just stored energy. You stopped spending it to impress others and started spending it to buy your life back. This realization leads directly to habit number 4. The ability to completely ignore the loud, flashy noise constantly surrounding you. Every single day, 100 different screens try to convince you that you are falling terribly behind everyone. Pictures of luxury vacations, new houses, and perfect lives. The illusion of wealth designed to sell insecurity. But you learned the secret. You simply place the phone face down, knowing the absolute difference between looking rich and being wealthy. You think the hardest part of building wealth is making the money, but the real battle is ignoring what everyone else is doing. A quick glance on a Tuesday afternoon. Your feed was always flooded with European vacations, new designer bags, and upgraded lifestyles. The old you would have felt that familiar, heavy sting of falling terribly behind everyone your own age. Then you see a post from Marcus. A picture on a rented yacht hashtagging about how hard work pays off. A perfect picture. But you remember him in the break room yesterday, completely panicked about his credit card minimums. Not because he is actually wealthy, not because he is blessed, but because he is playing a very expensive, theatrical game. You realize that most of the wealth you see online is actually just consumer debt wearing a very expensive, heavy disguise. You stop competing in a game where the only prize is looking rich while feeling constantly terrified about your next payment. Winning this social game doesn't mean having the most impressive pictures. It means realizing you don't need to play. Remember that question we asked at the very beginning about exactly when the real financial shift finally happens? It happens the exact moment you prefer the quiet, steady comfort of your bank balance over the loud applause of strangers. You are now 4 habits into this journey. While everyone else is busy building a stage, you are quietly building a fortress. Which brings us directly to habit number 5. Because ignoring the noise isn't enough. You need an actual physical shield, because life will eventually throw a heavy wrench in your plans. A sudden company layoff, a medical bill, a broken roof. Most people are just one missed paycheck away from total disaster. But you are about to build a wall they cannot see. The envelope finally arrives in the mail. A sudden, unexpected medical repair bill that would have normally derailed your entire month. 5 years ago, a threatening piece of paper exactly like this would have caused a legitimate panic attack right in your kitchen. You would have spent 3 sleepless nights staring at the dark ceiling, trying to figure out which groceries to cut. The heavy, sinking feeling in your chest. The racing heart trying to desperately invent money out of thin air to survive. You think wealth is about buying massive yachts. But the truest form of wealth is looking at a massive bill and feeling absolutely nothing. You simply open your laptop, type in the exact amount, and pay the entire thing in full, right on the spot. Not because you are a millionaire yet, not because you won the lottery, but because you quietly built an invisible wall. Have you ever heard the financial term FU money tossed around by wealthy investors on the internet? Most people think it means having enough millions to curse at your boss and storm out of the corporate office. But at this level, it just means having the supreme power to say no to panic anxiety and financial desperation. Just absolute profound peace. A quiet, unshakable confidence that no sudden disaster can actually ruin your life anymore. Once you taste that profound level of safety, you naturally unlock habit number 6, without even having to force it. You used to view credit cards as magical wands that could instantly upgrade your boring, everyday lifestyle. Now you look at consumer debt and only see a heavy, rusty chain waiting to lock you down for years. You used to believe the commercials. You thought financing a lifestyle was just a normal, necessary part of being a successful adult. Every time you swiped, a heavy, invisible shadow attached itself to your shoulders. It followed you to sleep and woke up with you. Not because the purchases were bad, not because you were irresponsible, but because you traded tomorrow's peace for today's temporary convenience. But then you completely unlearned that toxic rule. You realize that consumer debt is the exact opposite of actual, lasting wealth. Now you listen to your coworkers enthusiastically bragging about credit card travel points and cashback rewards in the break room. You just nod politely. you know they are stepping directly over dollars just to pick up a few shiny, distracting pennies. The system is brilliant. It tricks you into enthusiastically spending 20% more just to earn a tiny 2% digital reward. Habit number 6 is refusing to play. It is the quiet, radical decision to owe absolutely nothing to anyone. A zero balance isn't empty. It is the heaviest, most impenetrable armor you can possibly wear in a very unpredictable world. But playing defense is only half the equation, because eventually the market will crash and intense panic will fill the room. This brings us to habit number 7. The exact moment you learn to completely disconnect your emotions from your financial investments. A sudden economic downturn hits the news. Red arrows flash aggressively across almost every single screen in the corporate office. Whispers of company layoffs spread like wildfire. The air in the room becomes incredibly thick with fear and sudden quiet desperation. 5 years ago, this exact scenario would have completely destroyed your focus. You would have been utterly terrified of losing everything. But today you sit back, take a slow sip of coffee, and feel an overwhelming sense of profound, absolutely unshakable calm. A single blinking red downward arrow on a screen. That is usually all it takes to send a normal investor into absolute panic. The rumor mill starts spinning immediately. Whispers of a 20% company layoff spread rapidly through the quiet cubicles by Tuesday noon. You watch Marcus nervously bouncing his leg at his desk, staring intensely at his portfolio as it drops another 5% today. He is completely terrified. He starts furiously selling off his investments at a massive loss, desperate to stop the financial bleeding. He leans over and frantically asks what your defensive strategy is, entirely assuming that you are just as terrified as he is. You look calmly at your screen. You haven't touched a single thing. You haven't even logged into your brokerage account to check the damage. Remember that specific promise we made at the very beginning? Habit number 7 is the exact one that completely breaks most normal people. It is the rare ability to completely separate your emotions from your money when the entire world is screaming at you to react. You had to intentionally unlearn the old toxic belief that you must always do something immediately when bad news hits the market. Because true wealth isn't built by perfectly timing the market. It is built by simply refusing to leave the game when it gets scary. While Marcus locks in his massive losses, you experience a completely different, almost bizarre emotion right in the middle of a crisis. Absolute, profound freedom. You have zero consumer debt and a very heavy cash shield. So this temporary market crash means absolutely nothing. If they lay you off today, you won't lose your house. You won't lose your car. You won't miss a single meal. You might just take a 6-month vacation instead. That is the ultimate quiet joy of completely missing out on the collective panic. Have you ever felt that deep, uncomfortable shame when you had to decline an incredibly expensive invitation from your friend group? You used to invent elaborate, complicated excuses just to avoid admitting that you were quietly prioritizing your financial security over a weekend trip. Meanwhile, the group goes without you. They post flashy photos of expensive dinners, and you feel that crushing wave of missing out. You genuinely thought that skipping the trip meant you were failing at life, falling terribly behind everyone else's glamorous, fast-paced timeline. But then, habit number 8 quietly takes over. The toxic, exhausting fear of missing out completely vanishes from your mind. It is beautifully replaced by JOMO, the profound, quiet joy of missing out on incredibly expensive, exhausting social obligations. A simple, no thank you. That is without a doubt the most powerful financial sentence you will ever learn to say. You realize that saying no to a flashy luxury dinner is actually saying a massive yes to your own future freedom. Remember that exact psychological shift we talked about in the very beginning? When you stop looking rich and start building wealth. It happens right here. You no longer need an audience to validate your choices. You are entirely comfortable in the silence. This brings us to habit number 9, the final and most closely guarded secret: the absolute, uncompromising protection of your own energy. You grew up completely believing in the halo effect of fake wealth. You thought people with expensive things had perfectly managed lives. You felt that crushing, silent pressure to constantly upgrade your wardrobe and your lifestyle, just to prove you were doing okay. But then you see Marcus working late on a Friday night. His expensive suit is wrinkled, and the confident smirk is completely gone. He looks absolutely exhausted. The incredibly heavy burden of maintaining a 6-figure lifestyle on a 5-figure salary has finally, inevitably, broken him. You listen quietly, feeling a deep wave of sympathy. You realize his shiny luxury car wasn't a symbol of success at all. That is when you fully embrace the final habit. You choose to stay completely silent about your own growing net worth. You don't offer him financial advice. You certainly don't brag about your emergency fund. You simply protect your own quiet peace. Because the exact moment people know you have money, their expectations change. They expect loans, dinners, and a completely different you. Silence is the ultimate protective shield. It gives you the supreme power to quietly decline anything you simply don't want to do. Marcus is heavily trapped by the loud opinions of strangers. You are entirely freed by the fact that nobody is looking at you. You start your old scratched-up sedan. The engine hums quietly, and to you, it sounds exactly like absolute, pure freedom. You are no longer playing their stressful game. You are playing a completely different game on a board that only you can see. The next morning, you park your scratched-up sedan in the exact same spot you parked it 3 years ago. You look at the shiny row of luxury vehicles parked next to yours. The exact same cars that used to intimidate you. But today you don't see status symbols anymore. You look at those glossy rims and you only see incredibly heavy iron chains. Remember the question we asked at the very beginning of this journey? When exactly does your mind stop thinking like a consumer? It happens right now. The moment you realize that true wealth is not a loud performance for a desperate audience. You built your financial fortress through 9 incredibly boring, silent, everyday choices that nobody else had the discipline to actually repeat. While everyone else played a loud, exhausting, and incredibly expensive game of pretending you quietly built an impenetrable wall of cash. The absolute greatest flex in the world isn't wearing a designer watch. It isn't posting a picture on a rented yacht. It is waking up on a regular Tuesday morning, looking at the ceiling, and knowing that you own your entire day. You never announced your growing net worth to the world. You never needed their applause to validate your incredibly smart choices. Because you finally learned the truth. The single truest sign of wealth is realizing you have absolutely nothing left to prove. You just live your life, quietly, safely, and entirely on your own terms, completely free from the noise around you. That is the undeniable power of those 9 silent habits. That is the incredible, unbreakable strength of building stealth wealth.